Welcome if you new, welcome if you've been here, welcome back if you've been here before. As y'all can see from the title below, I am going to be reading some Glitch in the Matrix stories. If you have any Glitch in the Matrix stories, make sure you email them to the email address in the description, spookytyt@gmail.com. Let's get these stories. Come on, I really want to hear y'all stories. Or if y'all just feel like anything creepy or unnatural that happened, you just can't explain it, email it to me. I like reading this, and I know y'all like hearing it because you clicked on this video. Anyway, okay, so we're gonna get right into the videos, into the stories. Okay, let's go. About 2 years into my relationship with my girlfriend, we'll call her Susan, I had a dream about my ex. The dream went like this. I was in my room at my mother's house where I lived at the time, slamming my ex. We was getting it in, okay? And I was 10, you know. Y'all know. Now, I knew I was cheating on Susan, but I didn't care. So in the middle of it, I happened to look out the window, which from the back porch I could see. And there Susan was, watching us, crying and mortified. Then I just woke up. I thought it was a weird dream, but I dismissed it. A few days go by, and Susan and I are hanging out, and she brings up this weird dream she had a few days prior, which describes my exact dream, except it's from her point of view, looking through the window, distraught. When I tell you it freaked me the out, I ain't say anything at the time, and I still haven't said nothing. It's been 5 or 6 years, and it still weirds me out to this day. That's crazy. Is that considered a glitch in the Matrix? It's something close to it. I'll take it. Next one. My dad has this little toy monkey that he used to call his favorite child and tease me and my siblings with. Not in a bad way, but it was just really frustrating to us, to the point where we spent hours trying to steal it from him. Well, anyway, one day we finally got it and we threw it in the garbage after drawing on it and mangling it a little bit. My dad laughed and searched for it for a little while, but basically figured we had thrown it out and gave up for after a week or so. Anyways, a few years later, I'm about 17 and I'm walking down the street in Toronto. I do not live in Toronto. I was just visiting a friend. I see this little orange object in the road. When I walk over to it and pick it up, it's the exact same monkey. It even had the black Sharpie lines from when we drew all over it. I honestly cannot even come up with the chances of this happening, especially considering that our local garbage, is sent to a dump nowhere near Toronto. I actually took it with me and set it on fire, so I knew it wouldn't come back again. That is either a glitch in the Matrix or the creepiest coincidence I've ever heard. Somebody said, it will come back. If it come back, you need to cleanse, okay? Because that thing is possessing, it's after your soul. I used to work in a building that had 3 levels of sub-basements. With this piece of lab equipment, I typically worked in the lowest part of the basement. There was a wire phone in there, and I did work late some nights, but not this night. On this particular night, I was sleeping alone in my apartment when I then woke up to a phone call on my cell phone from my girlfriend at 3 a.m. She was hysterical, asking me why would I scare her like that. Apparently, she had received a call from the basement a minute earlier. She said it was someone who sounded just like me, speaking slowly, repeating her name, until crackling and fading out. My apartment was 10 miles away from work. I thought she was lying and being hysterical, but I saw the phone call at 3 a.m. from the basement phone and her call log myself. It still freaks me the F out. I don't think that's a glitch in the Matrix. I think that basement is haunted. That's haunted. I used to work at a deli in a supermarket, but I hadn't in maybe a year or so. So one day, my friend who was still working there said some young hot cop lady came in with a really old picture of me asking where she could find me. My current address wasn't available. The cop had a picture of me when I was 18 or so. At this point, I'm 25. In my mind, I thought it was the Terminator coming to look for me. Then strange things started happening within the preceding months. I was pulled over numerous times for BS reasons, 5 miles over the speed limit, running a yellow light, etc. I was held at a traffic stop for way longer than usual and never given any citations. On one occasion, after 20 minutes of being pulled over, an unmarked black car with tinted windows pulled up behind the cop car. The cop seemed to have known and been waiting for them. Nobody got out the car, but the cop walked over to it and spoke to whoever was inside. Then they let me go a while later. Years later, I still see a few sketchy black cars park and pass by my house. I don't think that's a glitch in the Matrix. I don't know what that could be. Look, somebody wrote under it, the only plausible explanation is that you're a child agent being tested with the government's new memory wiping / replacing technology. You are on their watch list. your whole life has been a lie up until now. In high school, I was in a drum line, and we usually practice early in the morning prior to school starting. We were inside the band room one day, so I'm doing my thing and I'm playing the toms, and I drop one of my mallets. I turn to pick it up and I can't find it. There's a 10-foot open bare floor surrounding me, and it's nowhere to be found. My instructor then stops us and basically just asks what the problem is. So several of us start searching around for my mallet and I can't find it. After a while of searching, I say screw it and I grab a different one. About 20 minutes later, the band director walks in, unlocks his office, and sits at his desk, knocking on the window. I look up and it's the mallet that I had dropped. He had it in his hand with the look of, what is this doing here? I could verify that it was mine because I marked each set. Nobody had gone into his office and there were no gaps under the doors, so it could not slide in. How did it end up on his desk? There were 15 of us in the room at the moment and none of us had left. I was stunned. We pretty much canceled the rest of the rehearsal right then and there because a lot of us were bugged out about it for the rest of the day. I couldn't even concentrate on anything else for almost a week after that. But eventually my brain just filed it under another unsolved mystery and I went on about my life. Okay, that's crazy. Now that is a glitch in the matrix. Now that is because you drop it on the floor, you turn around, and nothing's there. 15 minutes later, it's in somebody else's office? Like, what? I can attest to that because I've dropped things, turned around, looked for it, looked up and down for it, can't find it, and then a few days later, it's just on my dresser. Like I never dropped it. I didn't drop it on my dresser. How did it get here? Right after high school, I got a job lifeguarding at a water park resort. I had been there about a year, and by that point, dreaming about work was pretty routine. The dreams weren't usually about anything dramatic, like rescuing a distressed swimmer or anything, but on this particular occasion, I had a dream that one of my coworkers rescued an unconscious boy from this particular pool. In the dream, I was only assisting with first aid. I was not the primary rescuer, but I remember clearly what the boy looked like. So I had a few days off, and when I went back to work after having the dream, about halfway through my shift, I see the kid from my dream walking through the park with his family. They were still in their street clothes and they had just checked into the resort. So there was no way I could have seen him before. When I tell you I nearly fell out of my chair, he didn't drown or anything crazy because I was careful to keep an eye on him the whole time he was visiting the resort. That's crazy. That's crazy. I don't know how to rationalize that. All I can say is maybe he had gone there before and you just didn't realize, because you know when you see all those people, first of all, when you hate a job, especially me, I start dreaming about it. So maybe you just unconsciously saw him and then he just ended up in your dream and he just so happened to be the victim in your dream. Somebody said, this kid was probably at your pool a lot. You never noticed him, but your mind remembered him. That's exactly what I was trying to say. I'm glad that was down there. My husband and I met in our late 20s. We grew up near each other, but we went off to different high schools and colleges. We were a few years apart and we hung out with two completely different crowds. My parents put in a bid on the house next door to his parents' house when I was about 11. It fell through and we moved somewhere else. When I was in college, he traveled to my school to compete in a game. Since it was homecoming, he ended up briefly watching the parade. Out of hundreds of people, he remembered me. And he then told his friends that I was a quote-unquote cool chick. Not only had I been drinking, but I was dressed up as a crab standing next to Ariel from The Little Mermaid. I nearly shat myself when he told me he was watching me belly dance around the street and take pictures with little kids. While attending a house party with my now husband, I was looking at old pictures on the walls taken at parties with him and his friends. The ones that they threw back in our high school days. I was on one side of the picture and he was on the other side of this big group of people in this same picture. I went to about 20 parties back in the day and I do not ever remember partying anywhere near his area. My husband and I were best friends with a guy and girl who were cousins. We both went to their family gatherings but never happened to bump into each other. So after 6 years of hearing stories about each other, we finally met and we were an item by the end of the night. And we've been together ever since. That's crazy. Okay, so that's just like fate. I feel like that's fate. I don't think that's a glitch in the matrix. It's fate because y'all were always around each other but never quite caught each other's attention. Like your mom almost moved by his family, but you had to move somewhere else because that deal didn't go through. Y'all were at the same game together. I don't know why y'all didn't speak to each other. Y'all were at the same party in the same picture and then still didn't quite meet each other. And then finally, and then y'all best friends were cousins. So y'all will always hear about each other but still never got a chance to meet each other. Then finally y'all do and y'all item like that and then y'all get married. That is so cute. My family owns a house in Cape Cod. The previous owner was a white supremacist. All right, that took me out. See, this is why I need to proofread. Okay. He had an autistic son named Jimmy. Jimmy was known for putting on a trench coat and fedora, climbing trees, and pew-pewing cats and dogs with a BB pew-pew. Jimmy sounded like he had a few issues. When my parents moved into the house, they found a bunch of, I'm gonna just say Hitler paraphernalia in the bedroom. They put the paraphernalia in the shed. They told the former owner they had a week to get rid of it or they were gonna throw it out. And that's a long time, because I would have threw it out right then and there. Of course, me being the age of 7, I didn't know anything about this. But shortly after that is when I started getting visited 5 nights in a row by a figure in a trench coat and fedora. He didn't have any detail. He honestly looked like a silhouette. All he would do was stand in the corner of my room, or he would sit crouched or on my brother's bed opposite of mine and stare in my direction. On this particular night, I recall him sitting in a rocking chair, just rocking. When I looked over, he was gone, but the chair was still rocking. After a few nights of this, I told my parents about it. My mom called it a nightmare, but my dad was intrigued. He told me to tell him more about the figure. He then told me to tell the figure, Jimmy, I don't have your stuff. So the next night, when the figure appeared again in the corner of my room, I said, Jimmy, I don't have your stuff. And Jimmy walked right over to me. He put his face an inch away from my face and disappeared. I never saw Jimmy again. Years later, I found out the history of the house. I've often wondered if I had just heard about the history of the house and somehow suppressed it and imagined the encounters with Jimmy, but he just remains entirely too vivid in my memory. Let me tell you something right now. Jimmy was very much real. And Jimmy was looking for that BB thing. That's what he was looking for. I wish you would have elaborated more about the history of the house, because I definitely feel like the house was probably haunted or something. When I was about 7 years old, something freaky kept happening to me. I would go to bed. My parents would tuck me in. I loved that. I would slowly drift to sleep, only to awaken at 3:02 a.m., falling from the ceiling to my bed. But my sheets were tucked perfectly underneath my body, where I had just been. I mean perfectly, like the bed was made. This happened to me at least 5 times or so. Till this day, I still have no clue what was happening to me. You know what? That's crazy. I'm not sure if that's a glitch in the matrix, but the same thing used to happen to me. Okay, so the same thing used to happen. I used to fall asleep on my back. I don't know if it was some kind of form of sleep paralysis or whatever, but I would wake up and feel my body floating in the air. I was literally in the air. I wasn't asleep. I would feel my body floating in the air. And I knew I wasn't asleep. And I would just be there trying to move. And it was like my limbs were dangling and my legs was dangling. I would just be trying to move. I don't know what would happen. Maybe a small noise or somebody was coming towards my room or whatever. I would feel like I fell back into my bed. And then I would feel like I was waking up, but I knew I wasn't asleep the whole time. I don't know. It's so weird. And a lot of people don't believe you when you say stuff like that. But like I said, if you watch these kind of videos of mine, anything is possible in this world. I believe anything can happen. I don't tell nobody. I know I just told y'all, but I don't really just go around telling people stuff like that, because people will dead ass look at you like you crazy. And you know, that's another story. That's maybe another subject for another time. Because if I get too into it, y'all gonna be like, girl, is you crazy? And I'll be like, no, see, this is why I don't say shit. I used to work in music and I toured with this band. The guitarist, we'll name him Josh, and his best friend, we'll name Matt, a couple years back. He always talked about the kid and he seemed like a great guy. Josh said he always had this reoccurring dream where Matt was standing on this abandoned street, which supposedly was metaphorical for his purgatory. Josh had these conversations with Matt in his dream, and because he had overdosed unexpectedly, he felt like his spirit was not able to move on. At the end of his dreams, Matt would take a light bulb from the street and just stand in the middle of it. Josh described these dreams in extreme detail and could pretty much picture the street and what it looked like. Fast forward 6 months into touring with this guy. They were a huge Bright Eyes fan and wanted to stop in Cassadaga, Florida. The singer wrote an album there, and it's a really creepy spiritual place. It might be worth noting that 6 out of 7 people there were atheists. So we drove into Cassadaga around 2 or 3 a.m. and we drove around, when suddenly a big black dog comes in the middle of the road and just stops and looks at us. The guys in the band were weirded the F out, and they were saying things like, "Follow that dog, follow him, it's trying to show us something." And in my mind, I was thinking, these are some effing idiots. So we followed this dog for a few blocks. It's walking pretty slowly when all of a sudden we turn on the street and the dog just bolts. We try to speed up, but Josh says, "Stop the fucking van, stop." That's it, right there. We're all confused and we get out the van to look around. This is it. This is the street in my dreams. And from the way he described the street in his dreams, from having houses to the left and a park to the right, this was definitely the street. As we got in the van, a street light goes off and we just drive off. He claims that he never had a dream about Matt anymore, and that was the closure he needed. His friend Matt was definitely trying to tell him something. And since he didn't have the dreams anymore, the message was received. And the fact that the light went out after, just like how his friend took the light bulb out of the street light, that's crazy. I don't think that's a glitch in the matrix. Your friend was trying to tell you something. Whether or not I think it's a glitch in the matrix doesn't matter, because I still like reading these types of stories. And if you have something odd and strange like that and you consider it to be a glitch in the matrix, like I said in the beginning, definitely send it to the email spookytyt@gmail.com. It will be in the description again. All right, send it over. Send something, okay? Anyway, y'all already know the vibes. Thank you so much for tuning into this. I love y'all so much, and I'm gonna see y'all in my next one. Bye.